What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens video. About a few days ago, I made a video where I ranked my least favorite to my favorite episodes from the first 9 episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens. With episode 10 now on the horizon, as it's going to be released on August 10th around the time of this recording, I decided that I'm going to be doing the same thing kind of format with this, but we're going to be talking exclusively the duels and basically ranking my least favorite duel to my favorite duel from the first 10 episodes. Again, I'm going to format this the same as the last one and kind of keep it as a trend, as I will only do the first 9 episodes on this one, but do 11 on the next one to kind of make up for it. So, and this is going to be a series that I do, and then the final one will be a top 10 list of my favorite duels from Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens, and basically combined all of those together into basically one video. That way you guys have an idea of where I'm going to probably be ranking, or like where my list might be coming up from. So, yep, I think that this is going to be a really fun series. I want you guys to leave your guys' list down below, or at least your favorite duel. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Duel might be an unpopular opinion to some people, which probably is going to be for anywhere in this list. This might be someone's favorite. This one might be someone's duel or something like that. But that is going to my least favorite duel out of the first 9 will be Yuga versus Mitsuburo. If you guys don't remember who Mitsuburo is, he is basically the ramen ninja guy that we see in episode 6 as a point of reference. Now, when I put this at low, like at the least spot, or at least the least top on the 3, like my third least or something like that, it's not that I think it's a bad duel. I think it just hasn't appealed to me. This duel takes, again, place in episode 6. Basically, the stakes of this duel was that the ramen shop that Yuga had found out was on the newspaper was shutting down due to this carnival that was released, which we're not going to be talking about the full episode. I just want to give the context of this. So they basically go to the store, and basically this guy is going to serve one last ramen noodle, like one last bowl of ramen. And then we got this new kid, Mitsuburo, who comes in. Basically, he loves ramen to the fact that he wants to implement rush duel, or not just rush duels, dueling with ramen. Don't ask me why that has to be a thing, but basically he wants to do that. And he knows of Yuga. He was in the newspaper, and basically he knows that he was a creator of Rush Duels. He basically wants to know the secrets of how he created Rush Duels. Then they ended up dueling because he also finds out that that's the last ramen, and as a ramen freak he is, he challenges Yuga in a duel for the last bowl of ramen. The duel was alright. I mean, Mitsuburo had an interesting deck. It was like a ramen ninja kind of deck, kind of like how his personality was. The deck didn't really appeal to me, and even the duel didn't really appeal to me. The spell cards were kind of cool, I will not lie. They kind of like making like the noodles and stuff like that, and like doing all the stuff when you're making ramen. I don't remember the cards exactly, but I think that was a pretty decent thing. Honestly, it really didn't appeal to me. I think the thing that bothered me about this duel were the stakes. I mean, duel for old ramen, yeah, it's a friendly thing. It's not like Vrains where everything was serious the entire time, so having that nice, lighthearted duel was great, but I feel like there was no purpose for this, and that was because, A, Rook eats the last bowl, and being the dude just comes in and just eats the bowl without even thinking about what was going on and what they were doing for. They're just like, oh, ramen, I'm just gonna eat it. I mean, geez, Rook, that was a cold move. But the second thing is, though, is the shop stays open, and he still sells ramen at the end of the day. He sells rush ramen, so I guess you can do it for the last original bowl of ramen. But honestly, the stage just didn't really appeal to me, and it just didn't impact the duel for me. I mean, it just, even the duel just didn't really appeal to me as much. Sure, you had these food kind of things. It definitely reminded me a lot of, and I kind of mentioned this before in my review, it kind of reminded me of the duel between Yuya and Pepper. There we go, Reed Pepper. It kind of reminded me of that kind of stakes duel. Well, in that case, Yuya kind of had to win that duel because of the fact that he was trying to get his percentage high enough so that he can compete in the tournament. So I could back on that one just a little bit more than this duel, but well, it wasn't a bad duel. It just really didn't appeal to me, and that's why it is my least favorite duel from this. But let's get on to the next one. We have the duel between Rook and Yoshio. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right. This duel occurred in episode 8 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens, And honestly, this was kind of the same thing as the last duel I just mentioned, the Yuga versus Mitsuburo duel, as the stakes really weren't good at all. I mean, I think these stakes were maybe a little bit worse than that. I think what I didn't like about the last one is because they kind of like counteracted their ones, and this one was kind of the same. Basically, the reason why they dueled was because Yoshio's mom, Mimi, that we learned in that episode, basically did not want him to rush duel because rush duels were her enemy at this point because Mr. Goha is after the rush duels. So he gets mad, so he decides to go after Rook to rush duel him in this kind of like bulky kind of suit. I know a lot of people reference him as Mad Max. I mean, I've never seen anything about Mad Max, so don't hate me on it. It's just that I don't have much time to watch TV these days or movies, really. I mean, me having to work and actually contribute to society, it kind of is harder for me to kind of do that kind of stuff. But getting on track, the duel, I think the duel and the cards in this were a little bit better, and that's why I preferred this one over the duel between Yuga and Mitsuburo. I mean, I really liked Yoshio's deck that kind of, well, the deck he called it was apocalyptic apocalypse type deck. It was a postpone apocalyptic deck. I thought that was the greatest name for a deck I think I've ever in my life, and it just was a really cool and fascinating deck. And I liked the fact that this duel also introduced the field spells, which we had not seen until this point of the thing. Gakuto kind of gives his explanation on what field spells are, and it really makes Rook at a big, heavy disadvantage because it basically targets its dragon monsters to lose attack points. So he basically was struggling this entire duel. But I think what made this maybe a little bit better for me as well, because there was no stakes. They just did because he was just mad at Rook because he liked Rush. But what made me really like this duel, I think this duel had probably one of the best summonings that Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens has had so far, and that is the summoning of Dragonic Slayer. I just love the design of this card. I love the summoning chant with Rook just going into the blazing sun as he summons this monster was just incredible. I absolutely loved that summoning. I love the monster. It just hits me on so many levels. I love that dark theme to that dragon. And at one point, Rook had this monster and Rush Dragon Rick Gears. He had his two ace monsters on the field. So I thought that was incredible. I really did like it. Again, the stakes really don't hit it for me, and that's why it's so low on the list. But hey, I think that Dragonic Slayer summoning basically just beat it out of being my least favorite duel. But second least, it's not something to be proud of, but hey, at least I think the duel was good, though. It makes the 8th spot on my list. Up next, we actually have the last duel that had occurred in Yugioh Sevens, and that is the duel between Yuga and Khan. Out of the duels that Yuga dueled that I was one-shot characters, definitely Khan was my favorite. I think he was a really interesting character in this. Honestly, this was another duel that really didn't appeal to me as much. The stakes really, I think this was another duel that really didn't have those stakes that clicked with me. But what I liked about and it was only these three duels that really didn't click with me. I should probably mention that because there is going to be one more one-off character, but I think he has a lot more importance, which you probably know what the duel I'm talking about. This duel just didn't really click with me in terms of actual reason for the duel, which what I think the stakes were is that they would catch this. I can't even remember what the monster is anymore, but they were trying to catch it, and whoever won the duel actually got to have the glory of finding the monster. They got to say, "Hey, I found the monster," but yeah, so it really wasn't that much stakes. The duel itself, I actually liked a lot more than the first two. I think it was a really good duel. I loved the new monster that Yuga summoned in this card, and I loved the symbolism that he had in this duel. The monster that one of the monsters he summoned in this duel was known as Full Meteor Impact, which looks like it doesn't look like a crazy design of a monster, but I really do like the design of the monster. And I love, again, how it was symbolized in this duel. Basically, when Full Meteor Impact activated its effect, it destroyed all cards on your opponent's field, or if it wasn't all cards, it was all monsters. And what I liked about it is it kind of represented how, if everyone, I'm assuming everyone knows the story of a meteor crashing down to Earth and basically wiping out the dinosaurs. That was the story we were told when we were in elementary school. Our parents probably have told us that numerous of times. So I think it was really cool how they kind of represented that. And honestly, there is a chance that Khan might have actually won. He activated a trap card before Yuga attacked, but after some effects from Yuga, Yuga was able to pull off the win against Khan, and that was basically the end of the duel. And then we have that little scene with Yuga and his invention at the end of it. It was actually a pretty good duel. I really did like the duel, but again, the stakes didn't really hit to me as much, and I can't really put it any higher. I like a little more reasonable stakes. That's why the ramen one didn't really hit me, or the fight for spaghetti basically was the one with Yoshio. So yeah, those duels aren't gonna appeal to me as much, and this one didn't appeal me as much. But out of the three that dueled, I think this was the better duel. It doesn't make any higher, but the dueling action got it to where it is on this list. Up next, we actually got the very first duel of the series, and that is the duel between Yuga and Hologram Man. I actually was switching between this one and another one for the 6th and 5th spot on this list, but I decided to go with Yuga versus Hologram Man for the 6th spot. I honestly, this duel wasn't that big in terms of the other ones, as I feel like those ones were a little bit more fleshed out. I will say though, I'm not going to fully explain this in this video, because this is something that I had thought about after I rewatched this episode, and I feel like there was something that kind of took an ode to the original Yu-Gi-Oh! And it was not just the Blue Eyes. It was amazing to see Blue Eyes again. Blue Eyes wasn't my favorite out of the bunch, but I still love Blue Eyes, and it's an iconic monster, and I just love it. And when we get into the duel, it seemed all hope was lost, because this was also the introduction to rush duels, so that you were able to spam your monsters on the field. He explained that. So tutorial ones will be a little less for me as well, but honestly, it still was a decent duel. And what I liked about it is they, out of really any times you normally explain the game, it didn't really take that long to explain it. You just had the quick, you get to summon as many monsters as you want, and then you have the quick you can draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So I really did like that, and it seemed all hope was lost after, I can't remember the actual card. I think it was like Burst Stream or something like that. Or something like that, where he destroyed all monsters on the field. Yuga ended up taking a direct attack with Blue Eyes, which I think is kind of funny. And then the not the symbol, it kind of is. The ode that I'm talking about is, for some reason, and I don't know why this hits me, but the moment when Blue Eyes gets obliterated reminded me of the very first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, when Exodia obliterated the 3 Blue Eyes. Now, I'll go into more detail in a different video, but that's where I see an ode, a symbolism to that, and kind of like how much Blue Eyes took. Obviously, it wasn't probably as rememberable, I think that's a real word, as the Exodia obliterate, but that would be a discussion for another time. But honestly, the duel wasn't impactful. I mean, the duel only lasted 3 turns, so I definitely, when it comes to shorter duels, which kind of was the whole entire thing with Rush Duel so far, has been really short. I just really don't think it was as impactful. I like the combos that Yuga did at the end, and that's why I actually liked it way more than the other duels, because I did like the combos he did to get it up to 7,000 attack points to defeat his 3,000 Blue Eyes White Dragon. But I really just can't put it any higher in this list. Again, I switch it back and forth with the number 5 spot, but honestly, number 6 being out episodes. And honestly, yeah, I think that's just really it for that one. I thought of something else, but I couldn't remember it. So, yeah, it's number 6 on the spot. Almost hit number 5. But hey, at least it beat out 3 of the other duels, which I'm going to be honest, I thought I was going to have to put this duel at last, because of the fact that it was so short and it was a tutorial, and a lot of people don't like the tutorial duels, but hey, 6th spot is not bad on this list. Now we are at the top 5, and I feel like this is going to be a trend on this video. I mean, seriously. At the number 5 spot is literally the exact same thing that I had for the episode rankings that I did a little while ago, and the duel that I picked for number 5 is the duel between Rook and Bakuro. I actually really like this duel, surprisingly. I will quickly mention this real quick to kind of get this out of the way. Out of all the decks that we have gotten so far, I think probably the weakest deck that I think in terms of me liking it was definitely Bakuro's deck. I mean, it was a cool concept with the kind of like the newspaper themed deck, but honestly, it really didn't intrigue me as much, the actual monsters and stuff, because I've really liked the design of a lot of the monsters. I mean, when it comes to me and Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I really gotta like the design of a card to really get into the deck, and that really didn't happen to me in this duel. But I think the dueling action was good. I kind of alluded to earlier that the last 3 ones didn't really have good stakes. This one, honestly, it had probably the best stakes out of all of the duels that we had so far, other than the hologram one, because if Yuga lost that duel or the timer ran out, he would get a 6 penalty and he couldn't duel anymore, basically. He couldn't use anything with his duel disc, so he would be banned from the server. But with this duel, and I'll explain in a minute why I like this duel and the stakes. But basically, the stakes of the duel is if Rook wins, they would have to rewrite the article they had written in the beginning because they were trying to slander Rush Duels and say, oh, it's bad, you should not play it, it's weak, all that kind of stuff, and they basically didn't want them to do it, so that was the reason why they dueled, because Rook basically got it offended because he wanted to become the king duelist of Rush Duels, and this guy is making fun of it, he's slandering it. So they go into the duel, and honestly, dude, the back and forth was alright with between the two news reporters that were kind of recording the duel. I kind of chuckled at it a little bit, which surprisingly Yugioh Sevens, not trying to say I'm cold or anything, but they got me to chuckle a little bit. I will say though in this episode. The dueling action was alright. I will say though, I was good to see Rook's monsters, and I really liked one play that Rook did when he activated a trap card to return a monster back to his deck to take less damage equal to its attack points. And what I liked about it is because of an effect that Bakuro activated earlier. What ended up happening was he sent cards back to the bottom of his deck, and I think he just sent a monster back to the bottom of his deck, which ended up having to send Rush Dragon Regears back to the bottom of the deck, and all hope seems lost. But after Rook activated that trap card of his, when he put that monster back in his deck, it forced the deck to have to shuffle, which ended up getting Rush Dragon Regears to get into one of his draws. I think it was the last card in his 4-card draw. So I think that was a really cool moment for Rook. And then you got his iconic Burn to Ashes, if anyone remembers that, from that duel when he was making his final attack with Dragears, which I think was kind of funny. But what I liked about it was the dueling stakes. Again, I mentioned that if they won, they would have to write a good article about Rush Duels. And what I liked about it is it impacted the last 4 episodes. Without the newspaper, Mitsuburo didn't know who created Rush Duels. He would never know who Yuga was. And in episode 7, Mimi and Mr. Goha would not have known about the notebook from Yuga. In episode 8, Yoshio would not know about Rook and how he wanted to become the Duel King and stuff like that. And like he was like giving those like questions, he was answering those questions to fans. He would have never have known that. And I think Khan knew them by the newspaper as well. So I like that the fact that this duel really caused a lot of chain effects going forward. I think that's probably one of the coolest things that Seven has done so far. And this was a one-shot character, I would say. He might return, but I think this character is a one-shot character, which I can't really get, but I think for that alone, it does make the 5 spot. I can't put it any higher because it wasn't as intriguing as I wish it would, but hey, you know what? It just made this top 5 list at the number 5. And honestly, that's really good for a one-shot character. Up next, we got the infamous duel between Yuga and Mimi. This duel was actually great. I really did like this episode. I love the whole concept of Mimi's deck. It was really, really cool, and I really did like her deck a lot. Basically, the dueling stakes in this duel was another high one, actually, as if Yuga lost a duel, his notes would have been taken away, and since Mimi was working for Goha, Mr. Goha would have everything about rush duels, or at least you would assume he would have everything to rush duels, and basically that could lead to rush duels getting shut down for good, and it would be gone from the servers, which obviously I don't think Yuga would be a really good fan of that. So they end up dueling. What I liked about this duel was that this was actually the first duel that Lycros was summoned in this episode and was not utilized for the final attack by Yuga. I mean, the last couple of duels we only had Seven's Road Magician, so it kind of got a little bit old, but to see this Lycross monster was great, and I loved Mimi's deck again, as I said. What I liked about it is it betrayed to old cards. Probably the most famous one in her deck, her Ace monster, DNK to the Gold Digging Maestro, or something. I think it was like the Gold Digger or something like that. And I liked it because it showed like younger versions of old cards. I know like Bubbly Elf was like Mystical Elves. I know there was another one for Lamoon, and I can't really remember the last one on the top of my head, which I didn't even know two of the cards until I had watched that duel. So hey, it made me learn some stuff about the past Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So that was really cool. And I liked how like her spell and trap cards were like kind of dance themed, so like they were like partying. Jeez, I don't know why I couldn't say that. But they were just like dancing the night away, as she says, even though it kind of the dialogue was funny with Gagato and Roman's like, I think Roman said like it's not good for your skin if you stay out that late, which I thought was kind of funny. I really did enjoy this duel. I think I did enjoy the other three just a little bit more than this duel, but I like the kind of cameo to the old cards, which I knew Dan Kanto for a very long time. I even used that card myself when I just built decks for fun on online sites like Dueling Nexus and YGO Pro. I just like to use it for the fun of it. I even used it in dueling, so it's a really classic card for me. It's a throwback card for me, and I really did enjoy that kind of throwback theme of her deck. The reason why I didn't hit for me with the other ones is just because of the fact that what ended up happening in the stakes. Because even though Yuga won, he still gave her the notebook, and that kind of bothered me because of the fact that you're giving up you basically are giving away the rush duels notebook that basically contains everything about rush duels. If you do that, you're going to be in trouble, but we find out that it really doesn't mean anything in importance to the actual rush duel. So that also impacted the high stakes of the duel. I shouldn't say high stakes, really. It wasn't that really big of a stakes. Well, yeah, if Yuga lost, we thought he was going to lose rush duels. Basically, it would be shut down afterwards, but that didn't end up being the case. So that did ponder it for a little bit, but hey, being at the 4th spot is not bad at all on this list. It makes number 4. Now we are at the final 3, and it's kind of funny is because the last 3 duels we had to go over involves all 4 of the main cast. It is all Yuga duels, so definitely one of the duels that Yuga had was my favorite. And in fact, Yuga's duels were in my top 3, which is, I didn't honestly think that, but after some pondering, this is what ended up happening. So, it all depends on who do I like more. Did I like Yuga's duel with Rook? Did I like Yuga's duel with Gakuto? Or did I like Yuga's duel with Roman? Let's find out. So starting off at number 3 is episode two's duel with Rook and Yuga. I really did enjoy this duel. I think it was a really good build up for Rook, as he was supposed to be he's basically the power character for the main group, as he is the strongest duelist. Right now, he's actually undefeated in 3-0, so that is really good for a character. He even beat the main protagonist, which I wish the opening did not kind of portray it, or else this duel could have been number 1, honestly. And that's honestly why this duel actually did not hit that spot for me. This was just a really good duel. I really did like it. It was a good introductory duel to Rook. This was another kind of tutorial video, or not tutorial video, but a tutorial duel kind of way, because Gakuto was also explaining the rules again. But honestly, I didn't. I kind of let that fly by honestly because you thinking of a younger demographic and they need time to understand the rush duels, so explaining it a second time is alright for me. I don't think it's that really of a big of a deal, but the dueling action between them was good, and I also like the way of how Yuga lost. So basically, he went to activate Seven Road Magician again, and all he needs is one different attribute. I think he needed a light attribute, and if he got that card, he wouldn't have been able to get enough attack points to not only destroy Rush Dragon Gears, but also get rid of Rook's life points. He already had enough to get over it, might I add, so he draws his card, and he looks at it, and it's not the monster that he needed. He drew a spell card, so it ended up not giving Sevens Road enough attack points, which when he attacked, it destroyed Rush Dragon Gears, but it left Rook with 100 life points. Are you telling me that he took, because of one draw, it lost a duel? I don't even think I've really heard of that in a Yu-Gi-Oh series. It might probably was something from Zexal or R5. I've probably seen that. I mean, or even GX to be honest, but that shock of how he lost the duel was incredible, and I really did like that a lot in this duel. But again, it kind of bothered me with the fact that, again, they did spoil it in the opening, so I am going to have a little bit of a problem with that. But honestly, the dueling action was great. I really did like the duel. It was a good build-up, honestly, for both characters. It showed that Yuga's not going to be this undefeated protagonist. I mean, in the last series, Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns, Yusaku Fujiki, the main protagonist of that show, was undefeated for the entire series. So, kind of right off the bat, with the fact that Gallup is saying, yeah, we're not going to have this strong main protagonist. In fact, he's not going to be the strongest in the group, as Rook beat him. So, they kind of, even though it's weird for that power scaling because of the fact that normally you would think the main protagonist would be a little bit higher than the rival, or not the rival, but the friend of the group. So I think that was a really cool thing that they ended up doing. But again, the spoiling of the opening kind of really hindered the duel as much, and I really wasn't surprised that that was the end result. I wouldn't have been surprised if Yuga actually won, because the opening would have probably lied to us. So yeah, but honestly, it was good for number 3, and yep, let's get into the next two. Alright, it's time to see who will take number 2. And the runner-up on this list might actually be a shock, but it is Yuga versus Roman Kirishima. I really did like this duel. I really, really wanted to put it at number 1. I absolutely loved this duel. It was a good introduction to Roman. We kind of see how her capabilities in the duel, in which she didn't actually have any capabilities. We thought at the very beginning that she was going to know how to actually duel and kind of like let Yuga win in a sense, which would have been incredible. But it was just Roman actually learning to duel. But even though with that, I really did enjoy this duel a lot. It was a really good duel. I actually liked her Ace Monster. It was the guitarist. I can't remember the name of the card for some reason. I think it was like Prima Guitarist The Light Show or something like that. I can't remember the full name of it. I know it was like Prima Guitarist, but it was a great debut for that card. It looked really cool. I really did like its effect, and just the dueling action between them, and then you got Rook in the background. Rook and Gakuto like wrestling in the background was great. But here was the biggest problem, and then actually took it off of the list. And I didn't even think about it at first, but the biggest problem that I had with it is that Roman didn't use her deck. She used a spare deck of Yuga's to duel against him, which you can say the fair point that she didn't have a deck, and I understand that. Which in the last, I think it was the third pack that we got, Roman is on that pack. So unless it's support for Yuga's deck as well, as she's gonna probably which I bet she's going to use her own deck. I would be surprised if she didn't use her own deck. But I kind of wish she did use her own deck when she faced Yuga. I think it would have been more cool to see her deck than just a spare deck of Yuga's, which Yuga did make it an unfair advantage. Just the only high monster she had other than that ace monster that she put in the deck was that level 6 monster that she summoned at the very beginning of the duel. So I think that was kind of funny that Yuga gave her a spare deck, but didn't really give her a fighting monster to go up against his 7th Rome edition. If she didn't have that card, she wouldn't have lost the duel. How are you going to have fun when you don't even have a chance to do it? Which, maybe you'll have fun in just the dueling aspect of it, but I don't know. I feel like if you're given an unfair deck, it's not gonna fly with me as much. But that really did hinder it. Like thinking about it later on after that episode aired, because I just really wish we saw her deck and not just the spare deck of Yugas, because it was just like a Yuga versus Yuga in the sense when in terms of the monsters. The only thing that's different is of the ace monsters, with Seventh Row Magician being the ace of Yuga's deck and the Guitarist being the ace of Roman's deck. But honestly, I really did like the dueling action. Roman has definitely been the most intriguing character in this list, and she just barely misses out of hitting that top spot. But that duel was still great to me. But nonetheless, the fact that she did use Yuga's spare deck really did only make her at 2 on this list and just making the runner-up spot for my list. Well, through process and elimination, my favorite duel out of the first 9 episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens is the duel between Yuga and Gakuto. I actually didn't think I would actually have Gakuto at number 1, because after that first episode, dude, I was really hindering if I was gonna actually like Gakuto. Honestly, the beginning of this episode, and I know I shouldn't probably be talking about the beginning of this episode, but honestly, the beginning of this episode and kind of like what was kind of going on in that episode kind of made me like this duel a lot more. With Gakuto being this such an important guy to the student council, to the fact that he tries to make all these rules and try to make sure that everything is in line with it, made me really respect this character a lot. It kind of really made me respect him in this duel, especially since of how the fact that he lost, because yeah, he did lose this duel, but I'll kind of touch on that in a second, because this actually really made me like this duel a lot. So the dueling action in this I really did enjoy. It was great to see these cards. They kind of brought back the set rule. We haven't really seen setting cards, I think, since Arc 5, and I think that was the duel. God, I can't even remember the duel. I think it probably was a duel against Shingo Sabatari, but I could be wrong about that easily. But we haven't seen it since Arc 5. I don't even think Vrains really... Oh, no, Go did use it, though, so never mind. But, I think it was cool to see that back in action. He did kind of play it easy at the very beginning. He didn't really want to duel him for fun, because he kind of made this duel serious. I mean, he had the 2 guys drawing the cards for him, which I think was really, really funny to me. But honestly, he didn't really feel like in the mood for dueling. But after Yuga kind of got to him, he got his spirit back, and he actually grabbed the cards from one of the guy, from the girl, I think it was, that was holding the cards. He grabbed the cards and dueled himself. And honestly, that symbolism there between the friendship and Yuga and Gakuto was really great. They even dueled previously, I think, when the Master Rule was set, and Yuga did beat him, or I think it was the Rush Duel set, actually, and he did beat him, so I think that was kind of funny. But as I probably mentioned at the earlier part of this video, not only is Dragonic Slayer probably my favorite monster, but also Gakuto's ace, Yamiya Roller. I really did like the summoning chant it is. It is my favorite summoning chant out of the 4 main casts, and I just loved the design of this card. And this was also the duel that got introduced to the Dark Magician counterpart of the Sevens Road archetype, and that is in the form of Sevens Road Witch. I really do like the design of that a lot more than Sevens Road Magician. Definitely, I'll take the Witch more than Sevens Road Magician. I do not like the design of that card, but I think the fact that those two were summoned in this duel, I think, was really good. The back and forth between them was really good, and even the end result, like what Gakuto saying, like, I lost, I will take it with full heart, and like you have the 2 student council members crying to the fact that he was going to have to retire, because that was the stakes of the duel, is that if he lost, he would have to retire from from being the class president. So they kind of had that sad moment, and he was like, hey, you don't have to do that, man. But the fact that he honored the duel, yeah, they do have an election afterwards, but I'll get by that because of the fact that they did have a re-election, so that doesn't hinder the actual stakes of the duel. I think if Yuga lost, then rush duels were not going to be allowed in the school. Like, you could not rush duel in school, which did kind of make it in a point, because how are you going to grow rush duels if your school doesn't let you do it? Because a lot of the kids aren't going to be dueling, so obviously that's going to be a big problem if that ended up being the case. So the stakes were pretty decent as well in that, where I feel like the Roman duel that I mentioned earlier didn't really have a stake that was really that good either. I don't even remember the stake of that duel, so That kind of shows how important that duel was. But honestly, the summoning of the two monsters, summoning of my favorite monster probably, if not, probably Dragonic Slayer was my favorite, but summoning one of my favorite monsters from the series so far, the back and forth between them, and the symbolism of this duel between Yuga and Gakuto's friendship, just pulled it out as my favorite duel from Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's first 9 episodes. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. I really did like the 9 episodes. I think their duel in action was really good for a start, and for a series that I gave so much slander at the very beginning of it. It's definitely surprised me, and I can't wait to hear you guys' thoughts down below. I want you guys to give me either your list on the duel, or give me your favorite duel from the first 9 episodes and your least favorite duel from the first 9 episodes. I would really like to know, and I want to see kind of how different our deck or our like lists are. I think I probably would be. I think I really do like the list that I have. I could probably switch Roman and Gakuto, but again, the fact that Roman didn't use her own deck really did bother me in this. But honestly, though I'm not mad with the list, I really think that this is probably the best list that I'm going to probably make, as I feel like the duels going further are going to be a lot harder to judge than these first 9, as we are going to be getting into like more of Rook Hiroshima, which is going to make the duels a lot harder, especially since it has a lot of stakes with the rivals. But I can't wait to be ranking those episodes further down the line and ranking the duels of that as well. So hope you guys enjoy, and I hope you guys stay tuned for that, as this is going to be a fun series going further. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna be signing off. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, leave your list down below, or leave your favorite and your least favorite in the description below. And until next time, guys, take care and have you guys yourselves a wonderful day. Thanks, guys.